Hi and welcome back. Today I'm going to be playing Mission Grenada from Close Simulations 1983, I believe. Um, it deals with Operation Urgent Fury in October of that year. The game is designed and the graphics are by Wayne Close, Captain, ILANG, Illinois Air National Guard, I'm guessing. Playtesters: Eric Aaron, Brian Close, Leonard Kroll, Tom Laurie, Captain of the United States Air Force, Chris Matthews, Tom Reed, Jim William, Tom Wright. Cover illustrations by David Dietrich. This is just a brief look at the rules manual and its table of contents. I'll kind of zoom in here just a little bit, hopefully, to where you can see some of the contents. The rulebook is not very long, nor is it very large. The entire game is kind of a pocket game. Along the lines of Stalin's tanks, ram speed, let's see, Rommel's tank, something like that, whatever it's called. Kind of like the metagaming games, actually. Introduction states that Mission Grenada is a two-player tactical level simulation of the U.S. invasion of the small island nation of Grenada on the 25th to the 27th of October of 1983. One player controls the forces of the U.S. and their Caribbean allies, and the other those of the Cuban Grenadian allies. Each X represents 500 meters across. Day turns represent, let's see if I can get it, 2 hours of real time. Night turns 3 hours. U.S. companies consist of about 150 to 300 men. Caribbean allies and Cuban Grenadian companies about 60 to 100 men. If you buy the game, your edition of Mission Grenada should include, let's see if I can do that, the following: one rulebook, 14 by 16 inch map sheet, 112 die cut counters, and one Ziploc bag. This is a brief example of unit symbology and numerology. At the top you have a regular combat unit, and at the bottom you have, well, the top is an artillery unit actually, sorry, and the bottom is a typical combat unit. The sequence of play: 1 is the U.S. action phase. Step 2 is the U.S. contact removal. Step 3 is the Cuban Grenadian action phase. Step 4 is the Cuban Grenadian contact removal. The game uses action points. Each unit has action points that it can spend each turn to conduct various operations such as move, close combat, or melee, I guess it is. Well, maybe it's close combat. Airstrikes, that type of thing. Airdrops, stuff like that. Regular fire does not use action points. I don't really, well, actually they do. A hasty attack and a normal attack too. So pretty much everything requires action points. The action points are listed on the lower right hand corner of a unit. The game has 3 scenarios, I believe. First scenario is basically the first critical hours. It's only 2 turns long. Just kind of gives you the basics of movement, combat, that type of thing. On all scenarios, there is something called tactical surprise. All Cuban and Grenadian units are limited to have their printed action points adjusted for any combat results during turn 1 only. Cuban Cuban and Grenadian units return to normal starting turn 2. Then we have scenario 2, the first day. It's 9 turns long, and then we have the campaign, which is 24 turns long, or when all Cuban Grenadian units are destroyed or exited, whichever comes first. This is an example of the initial setup and the map. Cuban units and Grenadian units set up face down. The number markers indicate where the medical students may or may not be, as the game uses dummy markers. Some of the markers represent arms caches, and some are dummy counters. The U.S. forces set up over here to the left aboard the Independence, the Guam, or in the U.S. And there's the action point cost table, a reorganization table, terrain key and terrain effects chart. We have the game turn track. Blue tracks are night, or blue game turns are night. The rest are white is day. We have the airstrike, artillery, and mortar attack table. And we have the normal combat results table, which is used for normal combat and hasty attack. Over here we have a victory point track, and on either the Cuban side we have just their force display. There are no reinforcements in the game. Pretty much, other than the U.S. gets a schedule of reinforcements. So you pretty much what you got is what you have to play with. Just one comment on the map. Well, yes, it is somewhat garish and somewhat hard to read some of the locations and some of the terrain symbology. But I've seen uglier ones. And the only other comment that I really have is I can't think of it at the moment. But if I do, I'll point it out. I'm going to probably play the introductory scenario just to get my feet wet, and we'll go from there. Okay, according to the first turn rules, I have to drop the Rangers first on an airfield hex. And any air defense, Cuban or Grenadier air defense, has to reveal itself if they wish to fire on me. I've decided to drop the Rangers over here, adjacent to what might be medical students. And let's see, there are 3 Ranger battalion or companies here, plus an artillery unit. And then, like I said, over here we have the Cuban air defense, which must reveal itself if it's going to fire. Attack. It is nighttime, so there's going to be a penalty for the drop, and I'm not sure if there's a penalty for combat, but we'll find out. Actually, upon further study of the rules, it's nighttime, and most units can only see out to 2 hexes. The air defense unit may always fire on aircraft, but paratroopers, I guess, are not considered aircraft. So the air defense units are revealed at the moment, but I know where they work, so I placed them, so it's no big deal. So these guys just get to land at night with a negative modifier, the Rangers. Well, playing the crucial hours scenario, this is the end of the game. It's only 1 turn long. Basically, it ends in what I would consider a draw. The U.S. went to Prickly Bay to see, well, actually True Blue, sorry. They went to True Blue to see if there was any medical students to rescue, and there were none. The initial landing, 2 of the units were disrupted. But they did make an attack on one of the Grenadian units, forcing it back disorganized, even with the disrupted air stack. Then some of the Rangers moved out to the, I don't know. Well, it looks like west on this map, to try to start securing the airfield, but there just aren't enough units in position to do so. So then the Grenadians, with a little bit of motorized Cubans, launched a counterattack, and the result was no effect on the Lone Ranger unit, no pun intended, on the airfield to the west. Why did I say east? West. Can't tell my direction, sorry. But there was no effect there, and in the other one we got a contact effect, which just basically halves all action points, and disorganized units already have their action points halved, so basically it's a no effect because it's at the end of the Cuban player turn. So it's only one turn long, and I don't think either side gained any victory points, so a draw goes to the Cuban. So if the Americans had had a better airdrop, I think they could have probably... Oh, I don't know. I don't know that... Well, see, the Cubans don't have a zone of control at night, so they could have probably marched and taken 4 hexes of the runway. So I probably played that wrong. Plus, I was going for the students at True Blue, but it turned out that they had already been moved somewhere else. So, anyway, that's pretty much the game. It uses fairly conventional standards. I did have an A7 come in to help support the Marine, or the, oops, sorry, for any of you Rangers out there, to help the Ranger unit, and it did pay off because the odds would not have been sufficient to launch a reasonable attack. So, anyway, I think the game probably has a little bit of promise if you were to study the rules better and get familiar with the game. Since it's the only game on the subject that I know of, I guess I would recommend it for that only. Otherwise, I don't know. There's better stuff out there. Not necessarily on this conflict, but there's better stuff out there. So, that's just kind of a quick look. I know I didn't show you much in the way of mechanics and stuff, but you can just assume that they're pretty much standard game systems, except for the action point subsystem. The other game that I had just recently looked at, and let's see, Little Round Top, uses an action point system too, and I'm not much on paying attention to action points. I lose track of them, that type of thing, and especially when you can use them to do multiple things in the same turn. I'm pretty much a traditional hex encounter. You have movement points, you move, your movement points, you're done, and then you attack. In this game you can attack as long as you have action points. So, I think. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this. My next game is going to be, well, it'll be a surprise. It's going to be an older game. Probably came out before I was even a teenager. Anyway, till then, later.